Well, good afternoon. How's everyone doing? Morning going good? Excellent, excellent. Well, I hope some information I'm going to share with you today will get you thinking in maybe a little bit different way. I do have 2 sessions tomorrow that somewhat builds on this, so I kind of want to lay the foundation today and then go into more detail tomorrow. And really what I want to talk about today is the concept around kind of the stack of your identity security. We've been throwing a lot of technologies at identity security, but it doesn't seem like there's a lot of organization or structure around it. It's just, we need security, let's just go and look at everything and buy everything. And so let's put some structure around it. And I think that the structure is going to be extremely important because still today, I haven't looked at the news that close because I've been here, but I'm going to guess there were more news about breaches. So, what we're doing maybe isn't hitting the mark perfectly, so we do have to think a little bit differently about what we have been doing, and we have to think about our environment. Maury in the last session really had some good insights into the cloud and thinking about the cloud compared to on-prem on what we've known for years, and really putting a lot of considerations around that. As a brief introduction for myself, Derek Melber. I work for a company called QOMPLX. I've been around speaking at events for quite a long time as a Microsoft MVP, and really enjoy what I do. And if you do have any questions related to the content I share today or tomorrow, or questions outside of that, anything Microsoft security, please, that's my email. I'm more than happy to address questions through email and start up conversations. So, there's so many numbers, so many stats, so many things. I think that the DBIR from Verizon has a little weight, has a little teeth. And so when you start looking at some of the information that's being shared, both from Verizon, Microsoft, other entities, about the stats on where the attackers are focusing, we really have to pay attention to some of these stats because this is where the attacker is focusing. It doesn't matter what we as the organization think we should focus on. The attacker is going to do the same thing. They are not going to change because we think it should be something other than what they're focusing on. So when we start breaking down attacks and breaches, credentials, our identities are at the core, right? I'm going to throw out some other stats as we go through the presentation, but this one here is very relevant. I think the number's pretty low. I think it's probably higher than this because the attackers need the credentials to get into our environment. I was just thumbing through my stream on LinkedIn, and there was another post. I'm sure you've seen tons of them. These are the steps to bypass XYZ company's EDR, right? Here are the steps to bypass XYZ company's whatever it is. So we need to focus clearly on what is important to secure in the organization. And I truly believe that is identity. Now, let's kind of break down what attackers do, and we know exactly what they do, right? I don't care what model you look at, we know exactly what the attacker is going to do. First of all, the attacker has to enter into the environment. We used to call it the endpoint, but now we call it the entry point, right? SolarWinds, Microsoft Exchange, prove to us it doesn't have to be an endpoint. Yes, we can still blame our users because they still allow people in, but it also is services, it's servers, it's applications that are allowing the attackers in. As soon as the attacker gets into our environment, the attacker needs some level of privilege. Now, I have found this is a confusing aspect of what the attacker needs. Because when people hear privileges, they're like, oh, they need privileges in the enterprise. That's not at all true. The attacker needs privileges over the device that they just compromised, or some device. Because they're going to do 2 things with every device that they touch. One, they're going to mine credentials. They are gathering as many credentials as possible from that device. Any place in cache, anywhere, everywhere, they want as many credentials as possible. 2, they want to install software. The software they're going to install allows them to move laterally, enumerate the environment, whether it be Active Directory, Azure Active Directory, whether you're using other cloud identity and access management solutions, it doesn't matter. They need to enumerate what they can attack. And it's very clear to them. And then they attack. They're going to move laterally, they're going to gain privileges, and then they're going to create persistence in the environment. Now let's talk briefly about these first couple of steps, because these first couple of steps are important, right? They're so important that organizations like cyber insurance is focusing heavily right here on these steps. And so when you start looking at organizations that supposedly are insuring us, they're going to tell us specifically you need a PAM and you need MFA. And I think that they are correct in some ways, but grossly missing the issue in others. Okay? PAM, absolutely needed. I don't care if you have 50 employees or 500,000 employees. You absolutely need a privileged access management solution. It has been proven that humans fail miserably at dealing with privileged accounts and making sure they're secure. Let's throw it in a tool and let the tool deal with that. Fantastic. MFA, right? I think 4 years ago, 5 years ago, everyone was looking at MFA as that. This is it. This is going to solve all of our problems. And we've had some problems over the last year with MFA, and we're not nearly as proud and putting all of our eggs in that basket. But everyone needs MFA, right? So we need PAM, we need MFA, but let me be very clear about these technologies and true identity security. And I'm going to blow some of your minds. Okay? These technologies do not secure the identity. Okay? Let me give you an example. MFA. Multi-factor authentication. You go into the hotel, right? Many of you were here from out of town. You went up to the registration desk, and you gave them your ID. Oh, but they're going to require MFA. You also gave them your passport. Did that change anything about the identity? Did it alter anything about the identity by proving 2 different ways to authenticate? Not a darn thing. 0. It didn't do anything with the identity, okay? And what are the attackers needing? To exploit the identity. So MFA is just a layer above really where we need to think about securing identity. PAM, privileged access management. Okay? You have a user that needs to perform an action on a server. Boom. They are granted the privilege to perform the action for 10 minutes, and then the privilege is taken away. Did that change anything about the identity? 0. These do not secure the identity. They are all about access. It's all about access. It is nothing about the identity, okay? In tomorrow's session, I'm going to break this down. We're going to go through example after example, both on on-prem AD and in Azure AD, which you can port easily over to any other identity store on what you truly need to secure. These technologies are not securing the identity, okay? Do you need them? No question, all right? Absolutely no question. You need them, but don't think they are going to secure your environment from the attackers, because they have nothing to do with what the attackers are truly doing to actually get in the environment, move laterally, and get privileges. Okay? These can help, but they don't solve it. If you don't believe me, there's a company called Gartner. I don't know if you've ever heard of them, all right? A lot of people put a lot of weight on Gartner, right? Gartner does a lot of research on this type of thing, right? This is a Gartner graphic. I didn't make this up. Gartner made this up. And you will see clearly that Gartner has this skull moving through MFA and PAM with ease because they don't secure the identity. They absolutely do not secure the identity. So what is Gartner saying? Well, Gartner is saying in this particular instance that these technologies are needed, but you also need to emphasize detections, right? When you think about what Microsoft created, 5 years ago, assume breach, you have to assume someone is in your environment. You have to be able to detect behavior that's anomalous. You have to be able to attack or detect behavior that is malicious. You also need to be able to respond, okay? Now, this whole idea of attack detection, we've kind of had it, but we've put a lot of it on our SOC. And when we start talking about identity, how specialized are SOC analysts with identity? Not really. It's not what they do. They are looking at patterns. They are looking at particular correlations and things that are occurring in the environment. But when they look at the details, right? Let's say that in the SOC, an event comes through and says the admin SD holder object in Active Directory has been modified. Does any SOC analyst in the world know what that is? Well, let's be honest. Are there many Active Directory administrators in the world that know what that is? Based on my experience, no. Okay? So we need to start thinking about what do we need. Absolutely, what do we need? Now, in the Gartner representation here, they're focusing on the detect and respond, right? ITDR, extremely important, but you cannot forget about the prevent. So I've kind of taken these concepts and flushed them out a little bit. And by flushing them out a little bit, now let's look at kind of a full list of what we need to do with our identities. Because it has to start with the prevention piece. And I'll be completely honest with you. We've been together now for 10 minutes, so I trust you, right? I have never seen a secure Active Directory environment ever. 23 years, I've never seen one. Still today, when you install Active Directory fresh, it's insecure out of the box. When you install Azure AD or you buy for Azure AD, it's insecure out of the box. Shouldn't shock anyone, right? So prevention is extremely important. Think about your current on-prem Active Directory environment. How old is that? Wow. Most of you are going to say, well, it's more than 10 years. Some of you are going to say it's more than 15 years old. We installed it in 2002 and have upgraded. Guess what happens in an upgrade? Junk in equals junk out. You get the same junk, okay? Many of you deal with mergers and acquisitions, so you got someone else's junk. So what is the first thing you need to do with prevent? Go secure what you have today. Go secure what you have today. Is your SOC going to do that? No. You know why? It's not what your SOC does. Your SOC deals with things that are happening right now. You could have had a setting inside of your Active Directory environment that occurred in 2005 that could be exploited in 10 minutes. Most organizations aren't looking at that. They're looking at the shiny new object in the cloud. Look at this thing. It's so shiny and new. Look at it. It's pretty, right? You got to focus on where the attackers are focusing, which is on-prem AD. I guarantee it, okay? So go into your identity stores. Pull the data and analyze the data as if you're the attacker. What could an attacker exploit? Look at those settings. But you can't stop there, right? That could just be an assessment. You have to do it constantly. How constant? Well, numbers are being thrown out. How quickly an attacker can get into an environment and breach you, you got to be faster than that. Real time. As real time as possible. Every change that occurs in your identity locations, you have to be able to know if those changes are occurring, okay? So when we start breaking down the prevent piece, you have to look at on-prem. You have to look at your cloud identities. We have to have visibility, okay? Visibility is a key term here, right? There's also key terms like prioritization. What I have learned over the last 10 years, especially focusing on this, no matter what list I give an organization based on their bad hygiene of their identity, they're not going to fix it all. They're not. I just did a poll on LinkedIn. It was like 5% that said they're going to fix everything. And I think they're liars. No one's going to fix everything. You know why? They're afraid something's going to break. They're afraid something's going to break. If I change this setting, what is going to break in my environment? But I still have to have the visibility. I have to know what to look for. I have to know what the attacker is going to look for. I have to secure things the best of my ability. Now, I mentioned admin SD holder, right? I could throw out 5 more Active Directory security terms that many of you have maybe never heard of. So if I give you the list and say, go fix this, you may look at it and go, I have no idea. So you also have to have context. You have to have guidance to know exactly what to do with the information that's being provided to you. It can't just be a list. It can't. Sure, the information's on the internet, but we don't have time to go track things down, to go find out where the settings are. So you really need guidance as well to make sure you know what to look for. So with prevent is extremely important. You have to go fix what you have and then maintain that level of security in as much real time as possible. You have to know so that you can look for certain behaviors if you're going to allow the risk to be there, okay? Now, Microsoft just wrote a report. If you email me, I'm more than happy to send you the link. And in the report it says 98% of breaches against Active Directory can be negated with good security hygiene of AD. 98%. People say AD can't be secured. Absolutely a lie. It absolutely can be secured. It can. I can secure AD so well, the only thing that's going to get in is if someone comes up with a 0-day that I didn't know about and I couldn't secure beforehand. Now, will things break when I secure AD to that level? Yep, which is why it has to be opened up. But you can secure AD. So go in and secure AD to the best of your ability. And you are going to reduce your attack surface dramatically. It's one of the easiest things to do, all right? But no matter what, no matter how good your security is in AD, you can still be attacked. I give the analogy of your health. Right? You may eat all the right foods. You take your vitamins every day. You exercise every day. Can you still get sick? Yep. So no matter how good your security is, you can still be attacked. Right? I break them down into different types of attacks. Right now, back at the office, someone could be launching a password spray attack and you can't stop them from launching it. Because anyone can do it. What you need is attack detection so you can shut it down as soon as possible. Everyone needs it. You need, at a minimum, password spray and brute force attack because no matter how good your security is, someone could run those attacks against identities, right? And then you have to start thinking, how good is our passwords to withstand those attacks? Are we using laps? right? Microsoft just put LAPS in Azure AD. Are you using LAPS in Azure AD? If you don't know what LAPS is, Local Administrator Password Solution. It's basically when the operating system is controlling the local administrator password. That way, all of them aren't the same, and no one really knows until they need to get into the system. These technologies are there. It's free. It's absolutely free. Okay? So basic attacks are there. Then you get more hygiene type of attacks. Okay? These hygiene type of attacks are because you have users that have privileges that have a service principal name because that account is running a service and it has the SPN to support the service. Well, that inherently is insecure. You have computers that are running services and applications that need to communicate outside of that box. So you go in and configure delegations so that they can communicate on the network. That is inherently insecure. Probably two of the most critical settings that every organization needs to look at. I have not found those settings on any audit program from any auditor ever. I add it, but I've never seen it on any audit program. You have to start looking at these details. Okay? And you have to be detecting if someone is leveraging these things. If someone is performing bad behavior, right? If someone just installed and ran Mimikatz, I have to be able to detect that. Okay? So detections give you visibility into bad behavior. Right? It even moves into UBA, right? User and Entity Behavior Analytics, right? Impossible travel, as they call it. I logged on this morning in Las Vegas at 8 o'clock a.m., and then at 8:05 I logged on from Sydney, Australia. That's pretty impressive. Okay? Impossible travel. You have to have all of these detections in place. Plus, you have to go all the way down to the very complicated detections of the attacks. Right? Because Kerberos, which is what Microsoft uses, is inherently insecure. Will Microsoft ever fix the issues with Kerberos? No, they won't. Why? One, they don't want you to be using Kerberos on-prem. And two, it's inherently part of the authentication protocol. Okay? So they're going to be there. You have to protect them. Because this is what the attacker wants. The attacker wants to move into your environment, get local privileges scanned to where they now can breach an identity. That identity has privileges, enough privileges to create a golden ticket. Boom, they now can do whatever they want. And we've all seen it. The numbers of how long someone is in the environment before they're even noticed. 6 months, 9 months. So now you start thinking about backups. I hope no one in here is relying on their backup to get them out of jail if they find out they're compromised. Who in here can go back 9 months and restore AD from 9 months ago and be successful? Because you have to go back that far, because as soon as the attacker got in, they put in persistence, they put in backdoors. So you need to have detections against basic attacks, identity-related configuration attacks, and then all the way down to protocol type of attacks that the attacker can now take over the entire environment. Absolutely critical. And then you need response. Speaking with some of the Gartner people, I said the response is one of the worst things that's out there. No one knows how to respond, right? So you have to have playbooks put in place. You have to have people educated about what to do when something occurs. You need immediate actions. All right? I think these three concepts, prevention, detection, and response, are the foundation for a good, solid identity security stack. There are details around it, but you absolutely have to have these three components. Because if you're missing any of them, well, that's where the attacker can now get in, right? If you have bad hygiene, they're going to get in there. If you aren't detecting attacks on protocols, then they're going to gain access there. You have to have all of them. That's why it's called a stack. Okay? So Again, tomorrow I'm going to break this down more, and we're going to actually go through settings. I'm going to give you a list. I'm going to show you how to pull the information out. We're going to go into the interface, and I'm going to show you the commands that you can run to pull the information out and what to look for immediately. Because if you can go secure even a handful of things, your attack surface reduces dramatically. Okay? So I hope this is a good primer to get you ready to eat lunch, because I think lunch is right now. And also just to get you thinking about what are we doing for security around identity? What could we be doing? What should we be doing, right? I'm out of time, but I'm more than happy to hang out here. If you have any questions, and again, I'll be around the booth. I'll be around tomorrow. So have a great rest of your day and have a great lunch. Thank you very much.